News Network, and you're watching News 9, English news as it should be.
Hello and welcome to News 9 viewers, and you're watching On Point with me, Deepak Suresh Kumar. The first topic on On Point this evening is the strained India-Bangladesh relationship. And are we looking at a downward spiral? On story number 2, on Point, we ask if the Bengal SIR data backs the reservations that the opposition had against the electoral roll revision. These are the two top stories on Point today. First, let's get started with the headlines. Total failure, says SC on the steps taken to curb Delhi NCR air pollution. Says air pollution crisis has been an annual problem and asks CAQM to revisit long-term solutions. Crackdown on obscenity and misinformation. Government enforces stricter accountability for OTT platforms. Rolls out three-tier system to safeguard children under IT rules. On foreign soil, this time at a BMW plant in Munich, Germany, Rahul Gandhi downplays India's manufacturing sector, says the country is losing competitive edge. Major boost to maritime modernization. Indian Navy commissions helicopter squadron INAS 335 at INS Hensa in Goa. Viewers, first up, these visuals on your screens are reflective of the growing tensions in what has been a celebrated historic relationship between India and Bangladesh. And viewers, this so-called protest by Islamists in Dhaka is against India. Not too far from the Indian High Commission, this is Dhaka attempting to pressurize India, seeking Hasina's deportation. India and Bangladesh ties came under strain today as New Delhi summoned Bangladesh's High Commissioner, flagging serious security concerns for the Indian High Commission in Dhaka. India also suspended visa services for Bangladeshi citizens in Dhaka and rejected Dhaka's allegations of interference in Bangladesh's upcoming elections. And New Delhi also lodged a formal protest over anti-India statements by Bangladeshi leaders, warning that such rhetoric risks damaging bilateral relations. The developments mark a sharp diplomatic moment in ties between the two neighbors, and the development comes a day after student leader Hasnat Abdullah of Bangladesh's National Citizen Party made incendiary statements against India, threatening to cut off the northeast from India. He called on Dhaka to shelter anti-India forces and indirectly referred to India by saying that vultures are trying to control Bangladesh. He said that Bangladesh will respond if India shelters anti-Bangladesh forces, signaling at Sheikh Hasina. Hasnat Abdullah is one of the many radical leaders of Bangladesh who have been taking an aggressive stand against India, demanding that New Delhi deport Sheikh Hasina to Bangladesh. Now, Sheikh Hasina, who is now living in exile in India, was recently sentenced to death by the interim government headed by Muhammad Yunus. But these development, viewers, are not surprising. The coup staged by Islamists in Bangladesh and the ouster of Sheikh Hasina was the defining moment in South Asia, a clear attempt to alter regional dynamics and trigger a prolonged period of instability. In a bid to pressurize India to deport Sheikh Hasina, Bangladesh has been taking to aggressive tactics, including summoning the Indian High Commissioner, making accusatory statements against New Delhi, announcing march to the Indian High Commission in Dhaka, threatening to break India, inviting hate preacher Zakir Naik, who is wanted in India, making statements about possible regional alliances with Islamabad, excluding India, and downplaying the 1971 war history. But Bangladesh, under the interim government of Muhammad Yunus, has been walking down the road to Pakistan the day his Islamist footmen decided to topple the democratically elected Hasina government. And one of the first decisions after forcing Hasina out was lifting the ban on the radical Jamaat-e-Islami group and its student wing, Islami Chhatra Shibir. In February 2025, Pakistan and Bangladesh resumed joint military drills after decades. In June 2025, the interim government stripped Mujibur Rahman of his status as freedom fighter. In August 2025, Pakistani Deputy PM and Foreign Minister Ishaq Dar visited Bangladesh, another first in decades, and the two countries began trade and defense discussions as recently as last month, viewers. And Bangladesh is witnessing a clear narrative shift, especially around the liberation war. Sheikh Mujibur Rahman has been stripped of his freedom fighter status, while the definition of honorific Bir Mukti Jodha has been narrowed, reducing many recognized fighters to the category of associates. As a result, the status of over 400 elected leaders has been downgraded, with several iconic figures reclassified as merely associates of the liberation war. The moves have triggered concern over a systematic rewriting of Bangladesh's foundational history, driving Dhaka away from India to pro-Pakistan. But the real data is this. On your screens is a list of at least 10 cases of genocide of minorities in Bangladesh, including Hindus, Buddhists, and even Christians. While these are the latest cases, the list runs into thousands at least. Conservative numbers show hundreds of people from minority communities were killed in violent Islamist protests across Bangladesh. Temples, including Buddhist temples and churches, were also vandalized. Idols of Hindu deities were desecrated. The scenes resembled that of East Pakistan era, when the West Pakistan army persecuted Bengalis across religions in broad daylight. Call it vested interests or foreign interference or radical ideological revisionism in Bangladesh. The latest strain in the diplomatic ties between New Delhi and Dhaka shows that India is facing a new regional challenge. But experts from Dhaka say the people of Bangladesh won't accept pro-Pakistani elements. Hear what our panelists on the debate on Vijay Diwas on December 16 had to say about Muhammad Yunus.
Yunus is the wolf in sheep's clothing. He is practically a jihadist. He is the Osama bin Laden of today's world.
Mr. Yunus is being the new Jinnah of Bangladesh. He's instructing his subordinates to reconnect with Pakistan.
Viewers, joining us on the debate is Ambassador Veena Sikri, former High Commissioner of India to Bangladesh. We have Suhas Chakma, Director and Rights and Risks Analysis Group, Professor Swaran Singh, School of International Studies, JNU. My first question is to Ambassador Veena Sikri. Ambassador, you have been the Indian High Commissioner to Bangladesh in the past. Have you ever witnessed such a situation outside the Indian High Commission where you see radical Islamists trying to storm the Indian High Commission building?
Absolutely not. Even at the time when I was High Commissioner to Bangladesh, there was a government of government led by Prime Minister Khaleda Zia with the Jamaat-e-Islami as a member, but never at that time, even though it was not by any means a friendly government, but never at that time was anything like this ever allowed to happen. And there was absolutely a normal situation, even though we had disagreements on so many points. But this situation is unprecedented. It is a complete violation of the Vienna Convention on the rights of diplomats stationed in another country, and it is the duty of the government, of the interim regime in Bangladesh, to protect the lives and the security and the property of the Indian government and the Indian High Commission and all its associates. But this is a frenzied mob. They're being whipped up to do this. And this is all linked to the forthcoming elections in Bangladesh. And it is amazing that the Yunus regime is doing nothing to stop them, not even making the slightest effort. Even just today morning, the Bangladesh High Commissioner was called in by the government of India, and it was explained to him and conveyed to him in no uncertain terms that this threat, because the threat was always there of this kind of a situation, a mob being led, that this should be stopped and nothing should happen like this. But it has fallen on deaf ears. And in fact, 3 days ago, our High Commissioner in Dhaka was called in to the Bangladesh Foreign Office on the grounds that a person of the National Citizens Party who had been shot at during an election campaign, that India had something to do with it. So this vilification of India, this anti-Indianism that is being whipped up by the Yunus regime is part of their election preparations, because what has happened is that I think the Yunus regime has been deeply disappointed that the support for Awami League, the support for Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's party is still there. The vote bank has not gone anywhere, despite the fact that she has now had to leave Dhaka and come to India, despite the fact of this fake kind of a trial that was done against her and the judgment passed by a court that was not authorized to try her, and in a manner that certainly did not protect the rights of any Bangladesh citizen. The support for her remains, and the support for Sheikh Hasina is being linked with anti-Indianism. So both are being whipped up in a way that will divert the minds of the people of Bangladesh and, take them away from any kind of support. So this is completely unacceptable. It is completely unacceptable. This has been happening for a long time, but for it to come to this pass, that the people of Bangladesh are now, a certain percentage of the people of Bangladesh, who are all members of Jamaat-e-Islami, who are members of the Islamist groups, who are members of the Islami Chhatra Shibir, the student wing of the Jamaat-e-Islami, all their focus is being put on anti-Indianism, so that in the hope that they will get support. But we know that even in the polls conducted in Bangladesh, the support for Awami League, 70% of the people of Bangladesh want Awami League to participate in the elections. It doesn't mean that they will necessarily vote for the Awami League, but they want participation. They want a democratic election. They want free and fair and inclusive and credible elections. This is what India has been saying all along, and this is what the government of India conveyed to the Bangladesh High Commissioner today, that the elections must be free, fair, inclusive and credible, and the relationship we see is between the people of India and the people of Bangladesh. India will never support any anti-Bangladesh activity from Indian soil, and India will never participate in any such activity. To make such accusations is completely wrong and incorrect. So I think that India has stated its position very clearly. I'm very glad the High Commissioner was called in to convey this unequivocal message, but it does not seem to have had any impact, because the situation there is deteriorating by the minute. I think it's a very serious threat, not only to the Indian personnel living there, but to this large border we have of 4,000 kilometers. The security and stability of that border is also threatened. I'm sure the Indian government is considering what additional action should be taken now.
That's right, Ambassador. On one hand, Indian missions are being targeted, and on the other hand, minorities are not safe. Suhas Chakma, there's a pattern that's currently there in Bangladesh. Do you think this is a pattern that reflects the pre-1971 East Pakistan persecution, because that's exactly what is happening in Dhaka?
Well, absolutely clear. The minorities in the country have been facing tremendous amount of violence. They cannot even assemble. I mean, if you assemble in Chittagong, as we have seen in the case of Chinmay Prabhu, that he has been put in jail, and he has been in jail since 24th November under trumped up charges last year. And his only fault was to organize a rally of the Hindu minorities at Lal Ligi Maidan. And in the Chittagong hill tracts of Bangladesh, each time you organize a rally of just peaceful protest seeking justice for the rape victims, you are shot dead by the Bangladesh security forces. I think what we have to keep in mind is that this is something which was there from the beginning. I do not know how the government of India had reacted. I think the moment the government of India, this interim government came to power, we have to realize that certain individuals who were already convicted as terrorists, they were released by the government of Bangladesh. So even if you look at it, whether it's Jasimuddin Rabbani, known Al-Qaeda leader, Lutfuruzzaman Babar, who was convicted for carrying these 10 trucks of weapons, which were meant to come to India. So you could see the policy of this interim government, which are completely against India. And if you look the reports and follow up the reports, in fact, 2 days back, there was a report in a newspaper saying that the Bangladesh government and the intelligence agencies of Bangladesh, they have invited Paresh Barua to be in Dhaka. And as per the sources, he is reportedly in Dhaka at this point of time. And these are activities which the government of India should have taken note of very seriously, because you are reopening the entire insurgency which was there in the beginning of this millennium. So the government of Bangladesh is continuing these policies. I think we have to be very clear that there is security risk And whatever Hasnat Abdullah had said, that, we will shelter the insurgents from Northeast India, they were already present there in Dhaka. So he was privy to certain information, being a young kid, and he was carried away. So he spoke the truth. So it wasn't a threat; it was already being implemented. So I think beyond summoning of the Bangladesh High Commissioner, I think it's essential for us to recognize this fact that this government, the interim government of Bangladesh, not only wants to rewrite the history, they want to destroy whatever relationship they have with the, the government of India. So Hasina is only an excuse. Hasina is only an excuse. So that's why I would say that I think we have to be very careful in terms of dealing with the government of Bangladesh. I think anybody in the Ministry of External Affairs hopes that, there is still scope for some kind of meeting grounds between the interim government and the government of India. I don't think it exists or it shall exist till this regime in any manner is removed from Dhaka. Till they are there, we can be completely certain that they are going to threaten the regional peace and security and attack India from the eastern part. And I would say that, eastern India, that eastern front has become much more challenging than the western front.
Suhas Chakma, this is indeed very alarming, but the most shocking fact is that this is a free run that is being given by the state to these Islamist radicals. And Professor Swaran Singh, these threats have always existed after Yunus government, replaced Hasina's regime. But do you think with the kind of anti-India rhetoric that's coming to the fore in the recent past and also just yesterday, do you think that Bangladesh is slowly drifting into Pakistan's orbit?
I think two things are very clear here. One, that Pakistan is using this as an opportunity from day one. And the kind of high-level visits and the kind of decisions of visa on arrival and direct flights and so on, and training of Bangladesh forces, etc., have gone on. It's an opportune time for Pakistan to cultivate Bangladesh. Bangladesh that is already willing, as is being said, to rewrite its own history and almost demolish India's role and role of its own freedom fighters in the liberation of Bangladesh. That's true. So therefore, it seems that the chief advisor, Dr. Yunus, is perhaps looking for his legitimacy two ways. One, by pandering to the radical elements on the ground. And then, of course, also seeking legitimacy in Beijing and Islamabad in that sense. Despite that, what we see very clearly is an enormous deceleration of the Bangladesh economy that was once used to be seen as a model of development in South Asia. The growth rate of GDP has gone down from about 6% to virtually 3%. Inflation is up from about 5% to now 10+% just in a matter of a year. And in that sense, now the World Bank has come with a report saying that within this year, 3 million more Bangladeshis would slide below the poverty line. So those are the consequences. And in that kind of a situation where people on the ground are agitated, are being incited by radicals and are facing real-time problems of price rise, etc. Is this frenzy of both Vijay Diwas, because this was an important moment to underline how liberation of Bangladesh took place, and therefore the radicals were inundating the social media with kind of counter narratives, and of course the declaration of elections, which will see this frenzy continuing. But I think one point I want to really underline is it is a separate matter to see these young student leaders, radicals, making incendiary remarks in their speeches or social media. But when you have the chief advisor himself in March, he made incendiary remarks in Beijing regarding India's northeastern region, to all the way 5 days back, you saw that Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Bangladesh making the comments of Sheikh Hasina's role in exporting terrorism into Bangladesh, and then calling of Indian High Commissioner to put that point across again and again. That kind of official patronage to that kind of narrative, I think, is really worrying. And it's not worrying just for simply India-Bangladesh relations. The way it is going to create chaos in Bangladesh, of course, India will have its certain impact on bilateral relations and on India as well. We remember what happened when Tika Khan was allowing a shoot at sight orders, and we had 2 million Bangladeshis walking into India. We don't want to imagine that situation happening, but this economic deceleration, the social disruption that we see, almost 32 million youth of Bangladesh today are jobless and are out of educational institutions, which are virtually dysfunctional now. That disruptive environment is going to be dangerous for the future of Bangladesh itself. And I think myopic views of the chief advisor to simply sustain himself staying in power for such a long period of time, particularly when you see with a parallel example of Nepal, interim government immediately declaring the date for elections and chief advisor of Bangladesh taking such long period of time. It's that constant uncertainty, instability and economic deceleration which has enormous impact for several decades to come in Bangladesh. Imagine that even when elections will be held, Awami League, you remember about 30% of support base that Awami League has had, has not disappeared, as Ambassador Sikri said just now. It continues to be there, and then what kind of elections are we going to see when you have enormous...
That's right, it will definitely, Professor, be a one-sided election, and this is clear because the writing on the wall is very, very clear. But Ambassador, Bangladesh has been following a very, very, dangerous trend, summoning the Indian envoy time and again. Do you think that, summoning the Indian envoy again and again is becoming an intimidation tool for Dhaka to threaten India?
This is part of the image of the interim regime that they have been developing from day one. I mean, when they came to power on 8th of August last year, when Mohammed Yunus was sworn in, India, our Prime Minister sent a message of felicitation, but our Prime Minister did draw attention to the attacks on the minorities, the Hindus, the Buddhists, the Christians, the Sufis and Ahmadiyyas. But we said that we are prepared to have, normal relations. We are prepared to continue the economic cooperation that had been built up. But from the Bangladesh side, from day one, they were only under one kind of pressure. One is that the Jamaat-e-Islami was behind Mohammed Yunus. The Jamaat-e-Islami has been the real power behind the throne, and they are the ones who have been declaring publicly that they want to have an Islamic state, a caliphate in Bangladesh. Publicly, whether on Facebook, social media, or in various interviews, they are saying so. In fact, the deputy chief of the Jamaat-e-Islami was in New York in the month of September and said, "I will send 5 million people to march into India." Any kind of unfriendly statement they have been making. Secondly is the pressure from Pakistan. All the people who were involved in the ouster of Sheikh Hasina, the regime change operation, was led by those who were the losers in 1971. So they have now come to what they define as their power, their moment in the sun. And so they want to go back to the pre-1971 situation. Their first effort, the moment Sheikh Hasina left Dhaka, was to bring down the statues of Sheikh Mujib, the father of the nation. As you know, as you said, he's been stripped of freedom fighter status. Anything to do with the liberation war was the effort was to wipe out that memory. But it is a tribute to the people of Bangladesh that they didn't allow it to happen. And even in the July Charter, which has been drawn up, and now there's going to be a referendum on that, there was, in the beginning, an idea not to have any mention of 1971. But now the people and the political parties said, no, there has to be, and so it's come there. What I'm trying to say is that the Pakistan pressure to go back to pre-1971, to disassociate with India and come in full association with Pakistan, and they're even talking of a federation and so on. And that is why the absolutely spiteful attacks on India, claiming that they will break the Northeast at every opportunity. They're talking about it. Then they openly are saying, when you call it a spontaneous revolution, it was not spontaneous at all. The students were not involved. It was an Islamic revolution done by the Jamaat-e-Islami. And they say that we killed policemen in Bangladesh so that our revolution could succeed. So they have, we have to recognize what it is. It is an anti-Indian regime. They want to bring absolutely the pre-1971 status. India has to recognize the threat to our own security at the border that we have to tackle now very seriously.
That's right, Ambassador. And what they call as a revolution is nothing but, conspiracy cleanly packaged as revolution. But it's actually not revolution, because revolution ensures that you progress. There has been no progress on the economic front or any front in Bangladesh. But what we see is that Bangladesh is being pushed to the dark ages back once again. And Ambassador, how do you look at the ties between India and Bangladesh during Hasina's time? And do you think that the damage that is being done, the trust that is being lost between the two nations, can it be repaired? Or is it beyond repair?
No, the relationship between India and Bangladesh during Sheikh Hasina's 15 years was excellent. And in fact, that was because Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina decided to recognize and accept India's security red lines. The support for Northeast Indian groups came down to zero. But today, as all my colleagues on the panel have said, all these people are back in Bangladesh. Their incitement on Northeast India is an invitation to these insurgent groups to come back and restart their business in Bangladesh. So Bangladesh is giving every indication that they want, to threaten India. They want to threaten India's territorial integrity, break off the Northeast, and so on. Of course, India is more than ready, and we've shown our own action against that. But the thing is that there are many aspects of the relationship that are continuing. I mean, for example, trade. India, in the interest of the people of Bangladesh, is continuing to send, whether it is rice, whether it is other important materials. But it is Bangladesh who is imposing restrictions even on that. For example, for the factories, for the import of cotton, they say, no, you cannot do it by the land route. Bring it by air. So they are imposing problems, hoping that Bangladesh traders will go to other sources, will go to Pakistan, go to Brazil, go to USA.
That's right, but they won't get anything out of Pakistan or any other unstable nation, Ambassador. And Professor Swaran Singh, do you think that the lift on Jamaat ban has completely made it clear that this is a capture by Islamists?
Perfectly. As the Ambassador just now mentioned, Jamaat-e-Islami has a very clear agenda. And that is why Sheikh Hasina had decided to ban it, because their very vision is anti-constitution of Bangladesh itself, that guarantees protection of minorities and so on. So in that sense, the fact that Sheikh Hasina had put a ban on Jamaat-e-Islami has now been lifted also on the Islami Chhatra Shibir, for example. These are extremely radical organizations. They want to create some kind of Islamic Republic in Bangladesh, as has been repeatedly seen in their speeches. And in that context, as you mentioned, India-Bangladesh relations were far more stable during 15 years of Sheikh Hasina. I want to underline that the trade between India and Bangladesh rose about 600% during those 15 years of her period. And what she had particularly done to ensure mutual trust was to clear those safe havens, which is where some of these northeast of India insurgents like Huji or ATTF and others were located, and that created mutual confidence and enhanced the kind of both interpersonal bonhomie among leaders and also intersocietal understanding between two sides, and of course resulted in very strong economic partnership. That has been completely undone and destroyed, and I am less optimistic in the sense how things will turn out to be even after elections. I do understand there will be a complete turn after a popular mandate-driven government is formed in
That's
Dhaka.
what the entire world is hoping for, Professor. But whether or not that will be realized, that is something that only time will tell. But I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, that I really have to wrap up this debate because we're running short of time. Ambassador Veena Sikri, Suhas Chakma, and also Professor Swaran Singh, thank you for joining us on this debate. Well, viewers, that was On Point 1. We'll slip into a short break and we'll be right back with the second story on Point. Stay tuned.
This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News 9. English news as it should be.
एसोसिएट स्पॉन्सर बैंक ऑफ बड़ौदा से लोन लेना एक मास्टर स्ट्रोक है।
पेंटिंग में पहली बार बिरला ओपर्स एश्योरेंस।
1 साल में पेंट को कुछ भी हुआ तो पेंटिंग वापस करके देंगे।
रजिस्टर करो birlaopus.com पर।
सामने नया सुपरमार्केट खुलने वाला है। क्या करूं कि पुराने कस्टमर भी रहें और नए भी आ जाएं?
देखो, आप दुकान के बाहर एक चाय कॉर्नर लगा सकते हो। चाय पीते पीते पुराने कस्टमर बातचीत करेंगे, उन्हें देखकर नए कस्टमर भी आएंगे और एक्स्ट्रा कमाई भी होगी। इसके अलावा आपके बिल्स देख के समझ लेते हैं कि कौन सा सामान कितना बिका है।
Irregular periods and unbearable pain. उसके लिए क्या करूं?
2 स्पून काफी है। ये प्रॉब्लम दूर करने के लिए लायन डेट सिरप, इसमें आयरन, फाइबर्स, विटामिन्स, किसी भी बीमारी से लड़ने की ताकत बहुत ज्यादा है। रोजाना 2 स्पून लायन डेट सिरप हल्के गर्म दूध में भी मिलाकर पी सकते हैं। लायन डेट सिरप रोजाना 2 स्पून।
Okay, 2026, take notes. Manifesting. More bubbles, less troubles. For my little Miss Sunshine, tickles and giggles. Also wanna be a biker chick this time. Vroom, vroom. Allah, merci beaucoup. And year 2026, only love for my people and myself. To manifest my best life, nature's cosmic energy. Now mine, natural diamond intention pendants.
यही मौका है बिजनेस को बढ़ाने का, पर पैसा।
अपनी सुपर पावर यूज करने का टाइम आ गया है।
आप टेंशन मत लीजिए, IIFL फाइनेंस से झटपट गोल्ड लोन लीजिए और बिजनेस आगे बढ़ाइए।
आपके जैसे सुपर हीरोज ऐसी छोटी मोटी प्रॉब्लम से थोड़ी ना रुकते हैं, इसीलिए लाइफ जब भी आगे बढ़ने का मौका दे तो अपनी सुपर पावर, अपना गोल्ड यूज करिए और IIFL फाइनेंस से गोल्ड लोन लीजिए।
IIFL फाइनेंस करता है सीधी बात।
From boardrooms to bookshelves, from startups to storytelling, witness conversations that define tomorrow's economy. Our honorary speaker, R. Gopalakrishnan, from Hindustan Lever to Tata Sons, his journey defines corporate leadership. Eastern India's first Business and Economy Literature Fest 2025, December 20th and 21st, Taj Talkutir, Kolkata.
Presented by EIILM Kolkata. Associate sponsor, Bama Lorry, Mukhorochuk, Alliance Broadband, Priyagopal Bishoi, and ChatGPT.
From boardrooms to bookshelves, from startups to storytelling, witness conversations that define tomorrow's economy. Our honorary speaker, R. Gopalakrishnan, from Hindustan Lever to Tata Sons, his journey defines corporate leadership. Eastern India's first Business and Economy Literature Fest 2025, December 20th and 21st, Taj Talkutir, Kolkata.
Presented by EIILM Kolkata. Associate sponsor, Bama Lorry, Mukhorochuk, Alliance Broadband, Priyagopal Bishoi, and ChatGPT.
All voter list data has been published and it raises a fundamental question. Does the data back the opposition's objections or does it expose the politics behind the protest? So let's decode the initial data. Viewers, there is data on your screens and this is not speculation or spin. This on your screens shows that the Election Commission has released initial booth-wise and constituency-wise voter revision data, and the pointers clearly indicate that this is an early phase of the revision exercise and not a final voter roll. It highlights the number of names verified, the number of names flagged for duplication, and the number deleted after due process. And this data forms the basis of the current political confrontation in West Bengal. So now let's move to what the numbers actually show, because this is where the opposition narrative begins to weaken and crumble. Because the loudest allegation was that minorities were being targeted and Muslim voters were being selectively removed. But the data does not support this claim. The data clearly shows that Muslim-dominated seats are largely unaffected by deletions. Deletion percentages in these constituencies remain minimal and voter roll stability is intact. Furthermore, the data also shows that Hindi-speaking and migrant-heavy constituencies recorded higher deletions, and the reasons mentioned address mismatch, duplication and temporary residence issues as key reasons flagged during the verification. This is a very critical distinction, because if this was communal targeting, Muslim-dominated seats would have seen the highest deletions. Instead, they remain stable and the spike appears elsewhere in constituencies where voter roll irregularities were already under scrutiny. So the question becomes unavoidable. Is this about voter suppression or is this about voter list hygiene? Is the opposition even resisting deletion or resisting verification? Because this is the most important question that we need to ask the opposition. And the India bloc, and more specifically Mamata Banerjee, She alleged selective deletion. They claimed that minority targeting was happening under the SIR. They accused the Election Commission of acting under political pressure. They warned that democracy is being weakened by this process, but now place those claims against the data. The numbers do not show religious bias. They do not show minority erasure. What they show is administrative correction through verification, removal of duplicate names, and also cleaning up of unverified entries. And this is not disenfranchisement, viewers. This is due process. This is not an attack on democracy. This is an attempt to strengthen electoral integrity. Bengal is asking some big questions tonight. If the data shows Muslim-dominated seats unaffected, then why allege communal targeting? If deletions are higher in migrant-heavy constituencies flagged for duplication, then why cry suppression? And if this is routine voter list verification, then why the political resistance by the TMC and also the Congress? To give us more insights and also to share their opinions, we have Mohammad Tausif Rahman, spokesperson of the TMC. We have Raghbir Singh, spokesperson of the BJP, Meeta Chakrabarti, spokesperson of the Congress, and Subir De, senior journalist in West Bengal. Firstly, my question will go to the TMC spokesperson, Mohammad Tausif Rahman. Mr. Rahman.
Good evening. Yes,
good evening.
Good evening, sir.
The first tranche of the data of West Bengal SIR is out, and it clearly blunts TMC and Congress's claim that minorities voters' names, the people who belong to the minority community, those names are being deleted. But if you see, the deletions haven't really happened mostly in the minority sectors. It has happened in Hindi-speaking regions and also the migrant regions. How do you view this, and do you think that the government was very premature in making such allegations?
Good evening to everyone. Sir, Trinamool Congress was not only worried about the minorities or the majorities. Trinamool Congress was always worried about Bengal and the voters staying in Bengal and the citizen of Bengal, those who are Bengalis. And we are very much against those Bangla Birodi who hates Bengal, who hates the Bengalis. But I would like to quote today what Abhishek Bandyopadhyay said, and I'm sure you must be knowing this. Like what he said, like today's list is the only draft, not the final electoral goal. The claims and the objection process will continue for the next 2 months. But I'm deeply satisfied with how the SIR has been carried out in Bengal. This was an unplanned exercise. Sir, let me take you to what the LOP, the leader of opposition, Suvendu Adhikari, said. He repeatedly claimed 1 crore Rohingyas and Bangladeshis are registered voters in West Bengal. Who's saying this? The LOP. Now, the Election Commission comes in the scene. Part 2. The Election Commission draft roll have now exposed this as a complete lie, whatever they quoted. Out of 58 lakh deletion, only 1.83 lakhs were identified as fake or ghost voters. Sir, how much? Only 1.83 lakhs were identified as fake or ghost voters. Where are the remaining 98.17 lakh illegal voters as they were claiming? This was not a mistake, sir. This was deliberately misinformation spread to create communal fear before election. I mean, this is what BJP likes to do on the first basis. How come Suvendu Adhikari or the BJP Bengal unit knew exactly that 1 crore, 1.2 crore, 1.20 crore names will be deleted? So this is why we come on the second part and say that kya election commission Bhajpa commission ban chuka hai? So if you go about the deletion data reveals the real story that the BJP wants to hide. Muslim-dominated constituencies have an average deletion rate of just 0.6%, while Matwa-dominated regions have 9% deletion rate. I mean, just look at the rates, 15 times higher. If illegal Bangladeshis infiltrators were the problem, as Suvendu Adhikari claims, why are the deletion concentrated in Matwa areas instead of Muslim area? Who will answer this, sir? I will wait for the answer.
In fact, we have Raghbir Singh, who's of the BJP. Mr. Raghbir Singh, do you really want to answer these questions and these allegations that the TMC is firing at you all, saying Bengal Virodi, you all are against, democracy and whatnot? How do you respond to this?
देखिए, तृणमूल कांग्रेस जो है, इनका बोलने में और करने में बहुत फर्क है. ये लोग जो इतने दिनों से ये लोग कह रहे थे कि इलेक्शन कमीशन का जो काम है वो बीजेपी के हिसाब से चल रहा है, बीजेपी इसके पीछे है, तो जो आंकड़े सामने हैं इससे ये भी क्लियर होता है जो कमीशन ने काम किया है वो क्रिस्टल क्लियर है, हम सबके सामने है। हमने देखा है आपके टेलीविजन पे और दूसरे टेलीविजनों पर भी किस तरह कुछ लोग हैं जो साउथ 24 परगना के जो बॉर्डर्स हैं इसको कैसे क्रॉस कर रहे थे। और ये जो आंकड़े आए हैं इससे साफ होता है कि जो हम कह रहे थे कि इतने दिन से रोहिंग्या जो हैं इस भारत में बांग्लादेश के रास्ते से, ये जो साउथ कैनिंग का जो रास्ता है साउथ 24 परगना का, इससे घुसपैठी सारे भारत में ये जो रास्ता जो एक कॉरिडोर इनका बना है वो क्लियर है। आप देखिए जो ये जो 12 लाख जो वोटर हैं वो मिसिंग है। They are not traceable.
Borders are clear.
Mr. Rahman, let him complete. Let him complete. You got your fair share of time. Let him complete.
They are not traceable. तो ये लोग कौन है? अभी भी जो है 1 crore 36 lakh people will be called for hearing. इससे और क्लियर होगा। अभी बाकी है। आप बताइए, हम जो कह रहे थे कि करीब 1 करोड़ के ऊपर जो है यहाँ पर जो है घुसपैठी और जो गलत तरीके से वोट बैंक जो टीएमसी जिसको मैकेनिकल हिसाब से यूज करती है वो है। तो पहले ही जो ड्राफ्ट रोल में 58 लाख जो डिलीट हुए हैं, देयर वेर लॉट्स ऑफ देयर इज द रेशियो वेयर द डिफरेंस ऑफ चाइल्ड एंड फादर इज बिलो 15 इयर्स। हाउ कैन इट्स पॉसिबल? ये हो सकता है कभी? एक बच्चे और उसके पिताजी की एज में 15 साल का डिफरेंस। और बहुत जगह तो ये ऐसा भी देखा गया है एंड फादर एंड मदर नेम वाज सेम। तो ये कैसे हुआ है? एंड यू विल सरप्राइज, देयर वन बस गाय, हिज फादर नेम वाज केकेआर, कोलकाता नाइट राइडर। तो ये सब जो आंकड़े आए हैं आप वेट कीजिए, 1 महीना और लगेगा, दूध का दूध और पानी का पानी will be clear.
That's right. And coming to Meeta Chakrabarti, do you agree with the data that has been released, the first tranche, or do you still continue to back TMC's allegation that several voters are being suppressed? Because this data doesn't really highlight suppression. It highlights, the administrative process that is being followed, that is duplication of voters being removed, voters with, no residences being removed. How do you look at this, Ms. Chakrabarti?
Good evening to all my fellow co-panelists and to all the viewers as well. See, we have never been against intensive revision. In fact, all the data pointers and evidences that our leader Rahul Gandhi ji had presented in front of the media and in front of the nation had pointed out that there are lakhs of fake duplicate voters, erroneous entries, probably done by AI script or probably done by data entry operators. And it needs to be cleansed. We need to get rid of the fake duplicate voters. We need to get rid of any illegal immigrant if there are any. And we need to make sure that not even a single valid voter is left out of the list. So we have always been in favor of intensive revision, but we have been opposing politically motivated SIR, where the ECI starts acting as a frontal cell of BJP. So we were against that. Now, I'd like to place a few data in front. The 3rd of December 2025, the number of uncollectible enumeration forms in West Bengal was around 50 lakhs. From 4th of December till 11th of December, that number rose from 50 lakhs to 58 lakhs, as we know. Meaning that 8 lakh more names were eliminated through a re-verification process. Now, when the first SIR order was published on 24th of June this year, and again an updated guideline was published on 27th of October this year, no guideline was mentioned about this re-verification process. So our first query from West Bengal Congress and Indian National Congress is, what was the method that was followed by virtue of which this 8 lakh names got deleted? Number 2. We saw that a lot more percentage of voters had been deleted from urban centers as compared to rural centers. I'll give you a few examples. Kolkata North, which has 7 assembly constituencies, saw a deletion of 26%. Kolkata South, 4 assembly constituencies, saw a deletion of 24%. Pashchim Bardhaman, 9 constituencies, 13%. Howrah, 16 assembly constituency, 11%. Whereas the state average is 7.6%. So while we can understand that there can be more migrant workers, but we also know that there are migrant workers coming out from the districts. So we would really like to understand why this discrepancy and such a significant discrepancy between urban centers and the rural centers. Then we also saw another report where the West Bengal CEO has gone on record and said 30.59 lakh voters have been unmapped based on the 2002 electoral rolls. Now, these electors will be given a notice to come in front of the ERO for a hearing, and they will be asked to provide documents of their parents' birthplace, any document that gives evidence of their parents' birthplace and date of birth. Now, imagine a person who has just been born after 1987. How many of them would have the birth certificate of their parents available? We have from West Bengal Congress, along with certain other parties, we have gone to the Supreme Court and we have placed this argument that this SIR process should not be a process of determining the citizenship of an individual. This is only about voter list correction. So the moment you are asking them about documents of their parents, you are actually making it difficult for a lot of people who are valid citizens, who have all other valid documents, but may not be able to provide supporting evidence of their parents, or both their parents' birthplace. Final submission. The CEO has announced that there's a further 1.3 crore voters, 1.30, so 1 crore 30 lakhs in the state, where they have been able to somehow establish a mapping and a linkage with 2002 voter list, but they fear that the mapping and linkage is not accurate. So are you telling me now that this 1.3 crore voters will again be given notice and will be asked to appear in front of ERO, in which case it will be a logistic nightmare? We do not have enough resources. So my final submission is, which has submission all along, that please ensure that more time is given to such an extensive revision. We want the revision to take place in an accurate manner. We want more time to be given, and we want to ensure that not even one valid voter is left out of this list. And our final query to the Election Commission will be that there had been huge numbers being thrown out by the likes of Shubhendu Adhikari, 1.2 crore Bangladeshi, so many crore Rohingyas. I would like to know from the Election Commission, how many illegal foreign immigrants did you find in this list? Crores, definitely not. How many lakhs or how many tens of lakhs of Bangladeshis did you find in this list? I hope I get my answer from the ECI. Thank you.
That's right. And Subir De, the Congress is alleging several discrepancies in voter deletion. But how do you look at the first tranche of data? Do you think that this data, the numbers and also the findings that have been revealed, goes on to blunt and also, dismiss the allegations of the opposition that there is voter suppression happening? What is your take?
No, it's a really challenging issue for our country due to cause of the lots of people outside of the India. They are came in cross border. What are maybe the things has been situated at the time of the cross border issues. So I don't want to discuss with the cross border issue, but it is a real fact. We got the lot of list, lot of number from the Election Commission in first review, and maybe it should be increased in further action in Election Commission. So it is a question of not a question of only the voter. It is a question of our national security. One. Second is issue is every central government should declare the budget for the every state. If I arrangement for the 10% for a state, and a day 9% should be included over the night, that should be divided within the 90 people. That is the one of the another reason for the economical side. So my understanding is it's good attempt for the SIR, but challenges faced by the so-called political party, maybe those who are in government like Trinamool Congress and other opposition party also should face the challenges. Why? One is identified of actual voter at the time of the day of voting. Second issue is previous before the time they are much more concentrated to attend the actual voter to convey their party motto and party campaigning. So how it is possible, I don't know. Last 50 years जैसे चल रहा है इलेक्शन, so I think that is the one of the more challenging issue for the all political party. Third issue is at the time of the management by the election commission, because all are the officials should come from the state government, and state government ruled by the one political party. They have some mandate for the all government officials. They don't this thing, do this thing, don't this thing, and I think several type of the guidance, internal guidance, coordination, and political influence should be adopted over the staff of the election commission. But election commission is the central election commission,
and the final decision will be with the election commission. Subir De. Now, Raghbir Singh ji, I want to take the opposition's question to you. सुवेंदु अधिकारी जी ने ये कहा है कि 1 करोड़ से ज्यादा घुसपैठियां ममता बनर्जी के वोट बैंक में है. इसका क्या प्रूफ है? That is what the opposition is asking. What proof does सुवेंदु अधिकारी have to come out with that 1.2 crore का नंबर?
ये देखिए, ये एक तरफ साबित है कि बांग्लादेशी रोहिंग्या जो हैं वो भारत में बंगाल के रास्ते आए हैं. इसमें आप दोहरा नहीं सकते. पर ये जो डेटा आप जो इसकी बात कर रहे हैं, ये कहने का एक ही मकसद था कि जो ममता बनर्जी है वो किस तरह ज्योग्राफिकली और इन्वायरमेंट जो खराब हुआ है आपका साउथ 24 परगना, नॉर्थ 24 परगना, मुर्शिदाबाद, इस इलाके में जैसे जितनी आप ये घटनाएं हुए हैं, इसके पीछे तो यही लोग को हम देखा है कि जब भी इंक्वायरी हुई है तो यही लोगों को पाया गया है. तो यही कहना है. और आप देखिए, हमें बॉर्डर इलाकों में बहुत सी जगहें हैं जहां पर आपको फेक वोटर्स मिले हैं, फेक आपके आईडी कार्ड मिले हैं, वोटर कार्ड मिले हैं, और बहुत सारे ऐसे हैं. कुछ लोग ऐसे भी वहां पर गिरफ्तार हुए हैं जो कि ये पैसे लेकर.
राघबीर सिंह जी, कांग्रेस भी ये पूछना चाहती है, कांग्रेस भी ये पूछना चाहती है कि प्रूफ कहां है? कितने घुसपैठियों को अभी तक इलेक्शन कमीशन ने फ्लैग किया है?
वन थिंग ऑल्सो,
well, we seem to have lost that line, but let me go across to Tausif Rahman. Tausif Rahman, you just heard what Raghbir Singh said. He said North 24 and South 24 Parganas have majorly seen violence because of the infiltrators. How do you respond? Is free run being given to infiltrators? Is there a free pass that Mamata Banerjee is giving? Because that's what the BJP is asking.
See, he said about कि भारत में जो रोहिंग्या और ये जो बांग्लादेशी आ रहे हैं वो बंगाल के रास्ते आ रहे हैं. मैं अपने भाई को एक चीज समझाना चाह रहा हूँ, सुन लीजिए मेरी बात अच्छे से. आपने ज्योग्राफिकल मैप से भी मांगा है, तो भारत में 8 स्टेट ऐसे हैं जो बांग्लादेश के साथ जुड़ते हैं. हमारे साथ भी जुड़ते हैं, असम के साथ भी जुड़ते हैं, त्रिपुरा के साथ भी जुड़ते हैं, नागालैंड, अरुणाचल, सबके साथ जुड़ते हैं. तो सर, बंगाल अकेला नहीं है सर. और मैं आपको एक और बात बताता चलूं, म्यांमार के साथ तो बंगाल का बॉर्डर भी नहीं जुड़ता है सर. इनको अंदर लाता कौन है? जैसे कि आपने उस वक्त कहा कि हमने देखा नॉर्थ 24 परगना और साउथ 24 परगना में कुछ लोग तार के पास से चले जा रहे हैं. सर, आपने ये देखा कब? अमित शाह साहब कहाँ हैं? हमारा बीएसएफ इतना नकारा नहीं है. वी आर वेरी प्राउड ऑफ बीएसएफ. आपको लगता है बीएसएफ उनको जाने देगा? तो दैट मीन्स माय होम मिनिस्टर इज इनकॉम्पिटेंट. He knows everything when the people are going and when the people are coming. How dare you tell me that you are seeing that people are crossing the borders? What? This is not a circus. ऐसे नहीं होता है. So these fake videos, and you want to come in a national television and want to debate on such fake videos, this is not done. So indirectly or directly you are attacking your own home minister, Shri Amit Shah, कि वो बिल्कुल इस काम के लायक नहीं है. सर, म्यांमार बंगाल के साथ नहीं जुड़ता, बंगाल के साथ बांग्लादेश अकेला नहीं जुड़ता. 8 अलग राज्य जुड़ते हैं, मगर वहां पे एसआईआर नहीं हो रहा है. क्यों? क्योंकि बंगाल में डिवाइसिव और सेलेक्टिव पॉलिटिक्स करना है आपको. सो दिस इज द रीजन. इनके पास जवाब नहीं होगा. So this is what I'm asking you from the day one.
But unfortunately,
How do you know
Mohammad
that
Tausif
1 crore
Rahman,
people
unfortunately, the
illegal
BJP
are staying in,
spokesperson
big
has left. Okay, his line has been disconnected. But we get your point that there is, there is the BSF that takes care of the border, and you can't make such statements about infiltration without any clear-cut proof. Well, that's something that the BJP will have to answer, and West Bengal elections are just around the corner. And one point that I really want to make clear is the fact that the political face-off will continue, where the BJP will say that there is free run to infiltrators, and TMC will continue its fear politics, saying that, oh, voters' names are being deleted. But the real facts of the matter, the first tranche of data is out, and it's there for people to see. More and more, parts of this particular exercise will be out, and they will have clear-cut answers. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us on this debate. That's all we could pack for you in today's episode of On Point. Stay tuned for News 9 for On Your Interest on the other side.